It's playoff season in Major League Soccer, and that doesn't mean we don't have anything to talk about. All right, Chris Bils, the Striker Texas podcast live coming at you here on our the Striker Texas social media channels. Victor Araiza with you, Chris Bils, the man of the hour, the legend. How are you?
That's too kind, Victor. I'm doing my best John Arnold impression. I'm sitting up here in Dallas. A little bit of
Are
family
you at a
time.
coffee shop?
I'm not. No. That's what I should have done. I should have gone to John's spot. He'd
Overplay the
probably be
music.
sitting right there. But yeah, he's getting some much needed time off. But I'll do my best to bring some DFW energy, whatever that means. So, how you doing over there in Houston?
Good. The weather's nice. I think if we could have this all year, that'd be great.
I know. Yeah, it's the
Um,
best time of year.
I know a lot of people will complain about the heat down here, but I always say, you know what? I'd rather have this kind of weather in the winter than that super cold stuff up there.
For sure. How about the
Um,
U.S. deciding to go to Columbus in January to play
oh
El
yeah.
Salvador?
Well,
It's gonna.
you know what? I was wondering what the deal with the holdup was that on that announcement. I don't get it. I mean, I guess I don't know that the El Salvador. I know El Salvador fans show up. I don't know if you needed to pick a destination like that. But
Yeah, it's
you
just
know,
gonna be.
it's
I
all fair.
mean, as somebody who's from Ohio and knows how winter works there, January 27th is that's like peak winter. That's gonna be. There's gonna be some people thawing out until March on that one. Uh, but hey, could be uh, could be a good home field advantage, I guess. So we'll see.
Well, I guess you gotta take any advantage you can get. I guess this is Columbus's payback, right? You know, they're always mad that the team left to Austin.
Yeah,
Austin
I
won
mean,
two World Cup games. It seems like
what I'm
Columbus
inter-
is able
yeah,
to get it.
what I'm interested in, I guess, is now where does because I think when I brought up the idea of Q2 hosting two matches, and I still think the March window would make the most sense for that, but I couldn't see them doing two matches at two different locations. But I guess we'll see. Um, but
Yeah, I thought they would bring it around.
but anyway,
So
now let's get into a little
because
bit of
we're waiting.
playoffs, huh?
Yeah. Let's see if. By the way, we'd like to remind you this is a live show, so we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube as well. If you got some thoughts, share them in the comments, and we'll do our best to read them out here. So yeah, Bills, first round in the MLS Cup playoffs. Anything stick out to you initially, or you want to go this a
Well,
little bit of game by
yeah,
game?
I think obviously Nashville was impressive last night. Real Salt Lake getting through without any shots on goal or shots period last night was pretty insane.
That's crazy.
Good way to finish things off on the first round, I guess, with you know David Ochoa doing his thing in goal. So that's going to be interesting with him going to Kansas City. But that's what stood out to me is Kansas City kind of turning on their form that we saw, sort of the Kansas City that we saw all year, not the one that showed up at Q2 a couple weeks ago and laid an egg. So, I think Seattle was sort of hoping to turn it on coming into the playoffs, and they weren't able to do it. But Kansas City looks like they're right back in the driver's seat, and we'll see what Colorado looks like against Portland, but that's the West is really interesting to me. We'll get into the East a little bit, some good matches over there, but
Yeah. Well, let's
you and
go
I,
into those
Victor,
first
I
games
guess.
from.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. Let's dive into those games, fresh in our minds from last night. Obviously, you mentioned Sounders and Salt Lake going 0-0 in Seattle, 6-5 on penalties. A little bit crazy too, right? Because there was a retake there for Salt Lake. Seattle looked like they were on
Yeah,
their way to win, and let's point this out: they were the only. Well, we're gonna spoiler alert if you haven't watched the MLS Cup playoffs. Seattle was the only home team to lose
yeah,
um, on their own turf in this round, which really the only upset goes there to RSL. Philadelphia, New York was close. They went to extra time, but ultimately, Philly resolved it. Um, Maybe the David Ochoa coming out party. I don't know if Seattle was a little bit overconfident, but we'll have a new Western Conference champion.
well, it was weird to me that there just didn't seem like there was a spark there from Seattle. I think you could see some frustration there late with Rio Diaz shoving Justin Gladden in the back, putting him into the boards. I thought, he was lucky to maybe get away with a yellow card on that play, and they didn't. Brian Schmetzer didn't go to the bench until late, bringing in Nico Ladero, which I understand he hasn't played a ton, and you're probably trying to save him for the later rounds, but you don't have time to waste in a moment like that when you're looking for a spark, and it just didn't seem like Seattle had that edge that we're used to seeing them have in the playoffs. Whatever it was, maybe just a slow start, or credit to Real Salt Lake for keeping them out of dangerous areas. Jordan Morris, played 103 minutes, but still doesn't quite look like the Jordan Morris of old. So yeah, I mean, it's a surprising early exit, but like I said, credit goes to Real Salt Lake for going in there with a plan, and I'm sure they were motivated. Their coach, Freddie Juarez, left middle of the season to go be an assistant coach in Seattle, and they were able to knock him off and move on to the next round. So and the other thing about
playing for a job.
Yeah, Pablo Mastroeni. Yeah, lots of storylines with Real Salt Lake. I mean, they still don't have an owner, which is kind of bizarre that they're in the Western Conference semifinals.
Who are they going to give the trophy to?
I know, right? They're gonna, they announce the owner on the podium when they hoist MLS Cup, I guess. But no, it's I think Seattle has had such a run that it makes it kind of easy to sort of gloss over how much, just how impressive it's been that they've been year in and year out, making these runs through the playoffs, because all it takes is one fluky bad game, and as you can see, their season's done. They looked kind of shell-shocked after the match, but Devin Ochoa, what a character that guy is.
Yeah. Reminded me a little bit of the what we had over the summer in Copa America, right? And I like it. I think more personalities make the game more interesting, or the playoffs more interesting. We see it in other sports. I don't see the reason why we can't see it a little bit more in MLS.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him egging on the Cauldron in Kansas City. I think he's going to have a hell of a time coming from behind his goal in that match. But
although I think we missed out a little bit here, right? Shouldn't we be having a Rocky Mountain Cup for the Thanksgiving match?
That's true. I mean, that would have been fun. I mean, they're just saving it for the Western Conference Final, right?
We'll go with that.
No, but Thanksgiving is going to be fun with Portland and in Colorado. But we'll get to that. Let's. How about Philly sneaking through on that late goal?
Yeah. You know what? I did the MLS bracket, right? And I didn't do it traditionally the way who do I think would win? I think I went. I did it quick. Let's start there, right? And it's already all screwed up. I got like 4 of them wrong or something, and I was like, you know what? Let me try to pick some upsets here, because playoffs are about upsets. So I was like, you know what? I think this one's a close game. I think Red Bulls find a way to manage it, and for a long time there, it looked like that was going to be the case. But ultimately,
it did. Yeah.
Again, I guess home turf is what ended up deciding it. One crazy goal. I think it was a 12-man. I don't know exactly, but I saw it on Twitter. Like, nobody's going to remember this game, but they're going to remember that goal, and that's the perfect way to sum it up.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about MLS playoffs, I think, is that you get these moments. Like you said, that was not the most pretty game, not a game that you're gonna think about, but the goal
blew one over the.
Yeah. There were so many chances that were just like completely botched, and then it takes the defender Jacob Glesnes getting his foot on one and putting it into the top corner, and all of a sudden Philly's moving on, and that's a team that I think there's the core of that team has been together for a few years now and have had some success. I think that's a team to sort of watch out for in these later rounds, just because they seem motivated, they seem like they have sort of that edge, and they're gonna fight. So we'll see. The Eastern Conference is shaping up interesting, because you've got New England, obviously, who's the best team in the league, but not ton of playoff experience there from those guys. And then,
well, not recently, but
New York City FC, which has been one of the best teams in the league for the last 5-6 years, but hasn't really had any playoff success. And they were able to get through and looked pretty impressive against Atlanta. So were you surprised to see?
Helped them a lot.
Yeah, were you surprised to see Atlanta kind of go out that way?
Yeah, again, my bracket, I had them in the finals, so I look like I was like an idiot. No, look, I thought they were gonna just kind of flip the switch a little bit here. I know they haven't been the best team all year long, but it's a fresh start in the playoffs, right? So I thought, they have some elements there. Obviously, Joseph Martinez, right? Trying to the guys that could be difference makers, create something out of nothing, and it just, I don't know if it was a short field or just an off night, but ultimately it just couldn't put it together. I thought they were going to be able. It looked like they're in the beginning that they were going to be able to do something and maybe take it back to Atlanta or just kind of keep on chugging on. But credit to New York, right? They this is what they've been all season. They've been consistent. They get it done once again. Now they have to go on the road against New England. I guess that gives you the New England or the Boston New York matchup.
Yeah, there you go.
But we'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see who comes out of these because like you said, I think there's things to point at on both sides, right? Like NYCFC, they've had talented teams before, but just weren't able to do anything with it in the playoffs. New England, it's been a long time since they've made it to an MLS Cup final, right? I mean, they're historic franchise in MLS, but we'll see if now with Bruce Arena, they'll be able to.
And the thing about New England too, I think, is you get so used to watching, like Portland and Seattle and Atlanta week in and week out on these national broadcasts. And New England has had the pedigree all year that they're at the top of the standings, but they're not really out front and center. It's not a team that a lot of people, especially, with us covering the Western Conference this year and not getting to see a lot of Eastern Conference games, I feel like, I know Carles Gil and Gustavo Bo. Like I know, the characters on this New England team, but I haven't watched them week in and week out, and it'd be a shame if they went out early, but I think it is sort of a bit of an
it could. I mean, because that's the thing of this system, right? It's a one game playoff. It's just, again, you have a night like Seattle where just nothing goes in. I mean, you're out. It doesn't matter what you did all year. That's a sure doesn't mean anything in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And to me, that's kind of what's against New England.
Yeah, but I mean, I've really enjoyed it. And look at it. Look at talking about the East. I think Nashville looks impressive, and I think it's a little bit surprising maybe for folks to look up and see what Hani Mukhtar did last night, and kind of the offensive firepower that this team has, but they seem to be kind of clicking.
And to be honest, he's been doing it since he got to Nashville.
Exactly. And Jandar Cadiz had the goal at the end there to kind of seal things, but Nashville, between the crowd, sort of the energy around that club, and the fact that they just don't lose, right? Like they've had so many draws all season long. That's kind of that'll get it done in the playoffs as long as you can, as long as Joe Willis.
It's like RSL. Look, you don't need to create anything in attack as long as you don't allow any goals. You're fine.
But they look good. They look like they're ready to make a run. So I think I'd be really interested to see that matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals of New England against Nashville. But we'll see if we get it. I was really impressed too with the atmosphere for that cavernous NFL stadium. I thought that Nashville's crowd really brought it, and I can't wait to see what that looks like in an actual soccer stadium pretty soon here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think. John Arnold obviously had a good piece on what Oscar Pareja has been doing at Orlando City. Obviously, they had a good MLS back tournament last year. But again, just not be able to take that next step in the playoffs. We'll see what happens with Orlando. I think maybe they just keep moving on forward. But yeah, Nashville, I think the spotlight turns on them.
And I do think it's a good blueprint, I guess you'd say, for a team like Austin, where Nashville didn't kind of come out. They did make that run at the end of last season and sneak in the playoffs, and they had a nice run in the playoffs, which Austin isn't going to have. But having a core of MLS players and putting the talented pieces around them, I think has worked pretty well for Nashville, and I think it's definitely something that you can find success pretty quickly in this league if you get an off season right, and I think Nashville's done a really good job of building that roster out in a different way.
And they went with an experienced coach, right?
They did. An MLS Cup winning coach. People might not remember his Gary Smith's championship with
He beat
with the
FC
Rapids,
Dallas in
right?
the final.
Yeah,
That's right, with the Rapids.
yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna drag you down that road. Let's talk. Which game you want to do next? I'll give you SKC or Portland.
Both impressive results. I guess let's go Kansas City first. Texas boy Kyrie Shelton scored his first playoff goal
Yeah.
in his career and got them off to a good start. And it looked like Vancouver was going to be right there, but Kansas City, to their credit, at home, looked like the better team. They looked like sort of the Kansas City that we've seen all year. I just wasn't sure if they were sort of fading, because that's kind of been a theme with Peter Vermees's teams over the years. Is just sort of fading into the playoffs, and they look good. I don't know. It's gonna be.
Yeah, Vancouver tried to make it interesting there. I mean, they got a penalty, but ultimately, I don't think they were able to create much. I think it was all Kansas City. Graham Susie with a hell of a goal. People say turning back the clock, but I think
Yeah.
Part of this too is I don't think this is Kansas City at its best yet. And especially with a guy like Pulido on the bench.
Right.
Because they kind of took in away maybe the Seattle approach, but it's just. But they're so dominant at home, right? I mean, they're just again another atmosphere where they have the crowd behind them. Now we have that MLS Cup rematch from 2013 where they beat Real Salt Lake, and like you mentioned Ochoa, and we'll see what he does.
Yeah, and I mean, there's already a
the fans
history.
there.
There's already a history there, certainly between the fan bases, and those teams have been rivals for years. Of course, it dates back to more like Kyle Beckerman, Matt Beasler type of matchup, but and those guys are gone. But I think you got a guy like David Ochoa to stir the pot and kind of get that crowd riled up. I think we could see some fireworks between those two teams.
No, but let's take it back to decision day, right? RSL getting a win over Kansas City. Damir Kreilach in the dying moments. That's how RSL gets into the playoffs. I believe we had a bit of a controversial call there, right? A handball doesn't get called in Kansas City's favor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It was a chippy game, so I think we
Yeah.
at the second.
I mean, anytime Roger
Espinosa
is involved, and you got David Ochoa, if those two get it mixed up,
you love it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Love it. Kansas City, my pick to go all the way, at least in my bracket that's already busted. They're the only thing kind of holding it together.
Yeah, I like what I saw from Portland, though. If you want to get into that a bit, I mean, Sebastian Blanco, we already saw him carry Portland to that MLS's back crown last year, and that kind of gets kind of lost because it wasn't the playoffs, it wasn't a regular season trophy, but this team's got that experience. They've proven that they can do it at home in front of the Timbers Army. Now they're going to have to go on the road on Thanksgiving, kind of a shorter turnaround, and play against Colorado. I'll be really interested to see what that looks like Thanksgiving Day in Colorado. I feel like, it's interesting that they chose that to put on Thanksgiving Day. I kind of get it because you're probably going to get about the same.
It seems like nobody wanted this Thanksgiving game, right? I mean,
yeah.
I saw like tweets out of Seattle where they were afraid they were going to get the Thanksgiving game, and I don't know. Maybe
well, they didn't make it to Thanksgiving as it turned out. So
well, there you go. That's what happens. But yeah, I don't know. Do you see it differently? Because I don't see it as a bad thing, and maybe because I like this tradition of, like, we have football on Thanksgiving, and I know
Yeah,
more
exactly.
sports have been trying to get into it, but it's American tradition, right? I mean, why wouldn't anybody want to have a Thanksgiving game, or is it really that much of a drag to miss out on family time?
Yeah, I mean that's always the weird thing with Thanksgiving games is how, who actually goes to the same with like NBA Christmas Day, who actually goes to the games, but it seems like people always show up and Colorado's kind of a weird draw to begin with. I don't know if that's
Right.
really it's probably going to be the same core fans that show up whether you play it on Thanksgiving or a random Wednesday night or a Saturday out there and I'm sure they'll have a good time. This is the best team they've had in years. They're the number one seed. I think they feel overlooked. Those are all great storylines going into this one. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have another option on my TV. I'm a big college basketball guy, and uh, you know, of course, you've always got the NFL games on Thanksgiving Day. But I'll make sure we're watching Colorado, Portland in this
Yeah.
house. So it's going to be it'll
I'll
be
be
a
watching it too. Don't worry.
fun new Thanksgiving tradition. I hope this continues. Of
Yeah,
course,
and
we
then I
won't get
wonder
it
if it's
next
going to
year.
be like, yeah. I was gonna say I wonder if it'll be Colorado every year, but I guess they'll have to be in the playoffs every year for that to happen. Recap a little bit this Timbers Minnesota United. I was disappointed in Minnesota United, honestly. I thought
Yeah,
uh, I wasn't a big believer, and they finally sucked me in, Chris. I finally believed in Minnesota United, and they let me down.
yeah,
I don't know. I
that
thought they were gonna do a little bit more.
yeah. I mean, it's always tough to go into Portland. I think this time of year, I think having been there and that team looked like a much better version of itself than we saw earlier in the year. Come into Q2 and drop a couple eggs. That um, Sebastian Blanco looks like he's on his game and um,
Yeah, when
you
he's a
know
man now in Portland, I mean, if that wasn't
exactly.
evident already.
And the thing is with this team too, which I think is um, Jimmy Chara and Diego Chara are obviously so good, and then you've got the opportunity. If they do get into a late game situation, if they do get into extra time. You're bringing a guy Diego Valere off the bench that I know he's getting older and he can't play as many minutes, but that's such a wild card to throw in late to a game like this one in Colorado, or if they're on the road in Kansas City. A guy with experience with that skill set, I think you can't overlook. It's just a matter of can Gio Savarese pull the right strings to get them all the way through. But I'm not writing off Portland by any stretch after what we saw. They kind of dismantled Adrian Heath's Minnesota United team, which it'll be interesting to see how short of a leash Adrian Heath is on because they finally got the players. It felt like this team was trending in the right direction, especially after the way they started the year. They
Right.
remember they were awful. They were one of the worst teams in the league. They lost to Austin week 3. They were still winless at that point. And they sort of turned things around. Got Hunu and Fragapane in, but it just they just
Yeah,
can't
for a while there, they looked like they
they
were going
can't
to
get
be
over that
locked into
hump.
the playoffs,
Yeah, they can't
and
get
then
over that
and then
hump.
they kind of, they were fighting it there at the end to even get in. But I thought, we had seen it from Reynoso before, right? Uh, just last year, where he could be the determining factor. Portland found a way to shut him down, and that team's, that'll work. That'll work against Minnesota United. So, all
Yeah,
credit to Portland.
and of course they had the run last year, and Reynoso was so magical on that. But it seems like people have sort of figured him out a bit. I don't know if maybe he just kind of had a little bit of a lull this year, but it seemed like he never really fully turned things on. He wasn't the same guy, so I don't know. Hopefully he can regain that form, but it seemed like he was a bit of a flash in the pan when he came into the league. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but it seems like he
Yeah,
hasn't
no,
quite been.
I think maybe it was just an off night. I mean, I don't know. That guy's pretty good to have on your team. I'd but again, but it's not just the one guy, right? I mean, it has to be the rest of the team, and it doesn't. I don't know. To me, it just one game like this, we mentioned the moments that Minnesota had. I think this was a good good game for them to pull up at Portland and try to get a win. But you know what? Maybe they shouldn't have faltered at the end. They would have hosted this game or hosted a playoff game. So that now they're on the outside. Going into the next round, so we mentioned Colorado against Portland, Kansas City against Salt Lake in the West, New England against New York City FC, and then Nashville against Philadelphia. So we're down to our last 8 teams. One of these is going to be the MLS Cup champion in 2021.
For sure. Yeah. I guess you said Kansas City's kind of your pick at this point.
They were my pick before this whole disaster started, but of my bracket. Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for Kansas City, right? I mean, they're just consistent. They always have that chip on their shoulder, right? Maybe like the same way Nashville has in the East, where nobody gives them credit. Despite what they do, they have a difference maker in Pulido. If they can have him healthy on the field, I think he can pull up with some goals. And he's not the only one. It's not like they're dependent on him, like we just talked about with Reynoso and Minnesota United. I mean, Johnny Russell can make plays for you on any given night. You got a guy like Graham Susi who can just, I mean, one moment is all you need, right? Kyrie Shelton's another good option up top. I mean, they're solid all around. I think Gadi Kinda. I mean, they're good. And, they replenished their defense a little bit with Andrew Fontes, right? They moved on from Matt Beasler at the right time. Tim Milia. I mean, what else can we say about a guy like him at goalkeeper? Right? I just, to me, that's who I went with at the beginning. That's my pick. But I see a case, right, for a Portland who's always in it. I mean, it's been Seattle or Portland and representing the West since I believe 2015. I wouldn't put it past Portland being there again. Colorado obviously has plenty to say for themselves, but that you could call it the curse of the number one seed, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
and that's why I'm not a big buyer on New England. I know they got Bruce Arena, and maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll at least get to the final, but I think there is something to that.
It is wide open for New England now. I mean, Seattle's gone. Portland's still there with the pedigree, but like we talked about, they're not quite the Portland of old. Although I could totally see them making a run. Colorado is the one seed, but still nobody really kind of believes in them. But if New York City goes into New England and kind of pulls off what RSL did, or they have the pieces to score some goals and cause some chaos, and then that busts things wide open. I think you'd be hard pressed to really pick a winner from this field at that point if New England's gone. But
and I always like the playoffs.
New England's still the favorite, right?
Yeah, I always like the playoffs to kind of see a little bit more validation, a little bit more body of work, and some of the guys that had an outstanding season, right? But who can really take it to the next level, right? Like a Tati Castellanos for NYCFC or Mukhtar for Nashville, which I think we've already seen it. Obviously, in Nashville's in win. So I think maybe there's a case there for those two teams. But yeah, I think New England's obviously got the destiny in their hands. They got the home field. So long as they win at home, that's it. I mean that's the big advantage of finishing with the first overall seed. But again, it's a one game playoff. It's anybody can win it, man. I'm gonna give you my quick predictions.
There you go.
I think Portland, Kansas City go through. I think I'm gonna go with New York City for the upset, and I'm gonna say Nashville make it to the next round.
Yeah, I think I still believe in Colorado one game. I just think that they've got that chip on their shoulder. They're rested against a Portland team that went up, had an emotional win the other night. I'll go Colorado, Kansas City. I do think Nashville squeaks through in New England. I like, the storyline of Nashville winning the East before heading to the West is something to keep an eye on. I feel like that's a very MLS thing. It's like 2021 Eastern Conference champion Nashville SC is going to make no sense 5 years from now, but it's on the table.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna sound old here, but a little going back into history. I think Dominic Kinnear bought himself a couple years here with Houston Dynamo a couple years back.
That's right.
They already missed the playoffs in 2010. Then they get shifted into the Eastern Conference with, I believe, Kansas City as well.
That's
Those
right.
two teams make it to the final, and Houston goes to back-to-back MLS Cups, which maybe, looking back and analyzing, maybe they had no business in. But that's to me, that's why I think, historically, the Eastern Conference is just the weaker conference in MLS, and that's why I don't put a lot of stock into this record-breaking New England Revolution year, right? I mean, I think it's great. I think applause to them. Congratulations, but I don't think by any means that makes them better than, it's hard.
Well,
It's hard to
they
compare
didn't have the
against
Texas
Toronto
teams
and
to beat
Atlanta.
up on, so that
that
helped them.
would have made it more record-breaking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Or we don't know. I mean, maybe it's the worst in the West, better than the best in the East.
Let's start that narrative on the Striker Texas. Where else, right? Where else are you going to get that take?
Right. You want to go around the league a little bit? Bob Bradley announced as the new coach of Toronto. I think a very little surprise. Ezra Hendrickson leaving the Columbus Crew, going to Chicago Fire. Something that was been rumored as well. Some moves getting made now in MLS. Obviously, also Dennis DeClose reportedly going back to the Netherlands. Will not be with LA Galaxy. So we're getting some movement around the league.
Yeah, I mean, Houston and Dallas got to get on whatever moves they're going to make because everybody's going to be gone here soon. But no, I think I don't know what you're hearing in Houston. I think it's interesting in Dallas. We were talking yesterday, some noise out of Mexico that Hugo Sanchez wants the job, right? Which is an interesting name to throw out there. Interesting to see what goes down here in Texas.
Yeah, I was doing a quick show yesterday with Club Deportes, and it was mentioned on there too that Sanchez and Dallas have already spoken. So we'll see. I think we try to chat it up a little bit, but it's not. Look, I'll put it this way: Hugo Sanchez always comes up for all coaching gigs. I do think money is a factor, right? That always seems to be it. If you're gonna pay the guy or not. But it would be I think it would be a good draw, and who knows? I mean, and if he really wants to get into coaching, I think that's a guy that he's gonna have to take a pay cut because he hasn't coached in about 10 years. But I think it would be interesting. And look at the same thing. I would even say for Houston. I mean, that's I don't think Houston would bring him in. I think Dallas would be a more possible, even if it might not be that possible, but I think it's more possible for Dallas to get him in Houston. But Houston is looking at Liga MX. Onstad was the general manager. Pat Onstad was in Mexico over the weekend, catching some games, maybe talking to some players. He said he wanted some MLS experience in his coach, but obviously the experience is not all there. This was in the I believe it was in the MLS Decision Day show. So Liga MX might be the next feasible thing, and I think it'll be interesting. To me, that was the move, right? I mean, if you're going to move on from Tab Ramos, you're not going to want to go into the same situation right away. You want to bring somebody who's proven. So we'll see. Coaching decisions to be made in Dallas, in Houston, and then we'll see what else we have as far as trying to get players all around Texas. Everybody's trying to improve. We got some friendlies too. El Salvador's coming in next weekend. Mexico's coming to Austin on the 8th.
Yeah, on the 8th. That's going to be a fun one. Mexico against Chile. And speaking of cold weather, Victor, I opened this show talking about how U.S. El Salvador is going to be in Columbus. How about U.S. Honduras in Minnesota on Groundhog Day? talk about cold, man. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Again, you know what? I don't fault them. I guess you got to take every advantage you can, right? I mean, it's not,
Yeah, I mean, I guess after Canada went up to Edmonton, everybody wants to do it now.
Yeah. Although I do think in this case too, Minnesota's been wanting to have more U.S. games, right? I don't know if Columbus needed another one, so I think that's kind of where I'm at with that one. I don't know if to me, I'm also about spreading the national team around a little bit. Especially when we have a national team that doesn't have like a set playing stadium. Maybe like Mexico at the Azteca. So, I think it's always great when you get to like move the team around the country. I think for me, just for that El Salvador game, I would have liked it, to see it go somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, with the El Salvador game being in Columbus, I hear you. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that March window. I still think Austin could be in play, but it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to see them going to Columbus twice and Austin twice. But I'd be.
Who's the last one? Is that the Panama, right?
It's Panama, and I think it's on the front end of a trip to Mexico, which I guess could play in geographically. Where do you want to go? I guess they could choose to go to altitude, but it'd be interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah. See, and that's my thing. I mean, Panama's been the one team out of those three from Central America that has been playing better. So, I mean, if there's one team that you wanted to take into the cold, it would have been that one. But time will see.
Yeah, I mean, March is not quite as cold as February 2nd, but yeah, I hear you. Anyway, no, this was fun. I'm glad we could chat a little bit about the playoffs. As far as we've got an end date to the offseason as well. I think Houston and Austin are both hosting games opening weekend, right? Right, Victor? Austin's got FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, Houston's got David Ochoa and Real Salt Lake, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, there you go. February 26th will be the end of the offseason. We got plenty of stuff on the Striker Texas. I've got some projections on the expansion draft who Austin FC might protect. They just re-signed John Kolbenich, brought him in full time after he was on loan from Maribor and Slovenia. So they got him locked up through 2024, and I'm sure plenty of news coming. We've got a half day or a full day trade window on December 12th, so that should bring some moves for both Austin and Houston, I would think. So keep it tuned right here, Striker Texas. We're going to have tons of off-season coverage.
Yeah, there you go. We'll have this podcast up on your regular podcast platform, and we'll probably be back after the next round, right? So
yep. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.